So what determines your choice of players when you do decide to hire a small ensemble?
Realistically, budget's probably the first thing when I'm on a project and I'm considering, how I'm going to produce the music. That's number one because, depending on what you're doing, you know, there are many things you can do in the box and in the computer. And if you happen to play a few instruments yourself, maybe you can handle it. So budget is the number one thing for me. And, if you have the luxury of a budget that's, good, then, these aren't really things you have to try to figure out. But for me, most of the time, I'm looking to, if whatever the direction of the music is and whatever is being featured in the music, I'll kind of let that lead me.
And it does really depend upon the team you're working with in addition to your own plans. I mean, for instance, when I was working on Total War Battles Kingdom, the Creative Assembly folks had a network of musicians that they worked with throughout that franchise. So they had a lot of people they could reach out to fill in. And of course, it's a very distinct and specific historical sound that they go for in the Total War franchise. So it was a deep bench to draw from, which made it a lot of fun. So I got to work with one of the best lute players in the world, and I had a lot of fun instruments, hurdy-gurdy, viola da gamba, the recorder consort, all that great stuff to create a medieval sound. And that was a lot of fun.
I sometimes think about where my weaknesses are in my sample libraries, or what are the strengths also, and in general, low instruments sound great. Percussion, keyboards, those all tend to sound really great. It's finding those solo instruments that you really need their expressiveness and the performance and the articulations that a live player can provide.
It's not only the instrument itself, it's also the enthusiasm, the attitude, the flexibility that the musicians bring to the table. And you definitely get that with Helix. As opposed to, what makes me decide, like sometimes, echoing what Winifred earlier said, sometimes you're stuck with instruments. Like I've worked on games where I've been working with samples. I had no illusion, no intention that there was going to be any live sessions at all. And then all of a sudden the music director tells me, oh, in 2 weeks, we're going to record with percussion ensemble. And I'm like, yeah, let's make it work. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, which of these samples are good, which ones are not, how large is this group going to be that we're going to record with, how much time are we going to have? And so, sort of molded to whatever is presented to you.
The thing that I personally look for, and you can see this if you look through the development of Helix Collective over the past 15 years or so, I look for diversity in sound. Say if I have the ability to hire 4 musicians, there's no way I'm doing a string quartet because it's just they all create sound exactly the same way. And yes, it's a very agile instrument with spiccato and pizzicato, colegno, and all those different techniques. But what I want is I look at the functions I want. Like, do I want, this is the shorthand that I use. Do I want pluckies? Do I want pedals? Do I want solo virtuosic lines? What do I want? Do I want grooves, like funky grooves? So I want to get as much variety in the ensemble as I can. So if I had 4, I'd be looking at something like, a drum set, a flute, a piano, cello, something that's going to cover all of the different worlds together and kind of link them and let me get those sounds from as many as possible. That's what led us to add things sort of like the guitar and even viola, which you think of as being this kind of this sort of middle instrument that fills in, but it has the ability to support the top or take a lower function. So it actually becomes very helpful. Same with clarinet. It can be very helpful in either range to give you a variety of blends and colors, even though, dual function. And so, yeah, I look for, I'd say, diversity over redundancy. And if I can, the more people I add, the more I can think about strengthening the sound. But first, I want individual characteristics to be clearly shown.